And we should be going free at this point. Can everybody see and hear me? We had to run over here and try to get things up and rolling. And we are going to be here for absolute maximum 60 minutes, probably 30 minutes. Is there no sound still? Yes, is there sound? Can we hear me? We're going to make a quick answer, I think, to some of these issues that were raised today, because they're important issues. And I didn't want to go on at length, given that we had Emily Yukis on, and the audience was very interested in hearing everything that she had to say and share. So I thought this was just appropriate to come over here and do a brief going free stream to see if there was anything you all had to ask. Okay, looks like we're good, and we should be good over on loud and clear. Thank you all. All right, if you have any questions that you all wanted to ask about the show that just ended, then please feel free to ask them here. You can, of course, tag me in the live streams of any of the channels, either of the YouTube channels. You can also financially gift on Cash App at 6% or on Entropy at 15%. And on Entropy, you can ask a question or make a statement in the question widget. And you can also vote on those, and I will address those. So how do you all feel about what was discussed earlier? I know out of the thousands that were watching the stream a moment ago that the advanced placement are going to come over for the stream that we do here. All right, let's see. Benji says, what do you think about Emily saying we should give sections of America to these people? It is premature. And I spoke earlier in the show about, right at the very beginning, where Emily referred to the United States as a racial experiment. And the reason for that is because she's inside of the anti-white narrative. So it's not, her heart is in the right place, what I know of Emily. And from everything she said, heart's in the right place. But she's inside of the anti-white narrative. And when you're inside of the anti-white narrative, you cannot think your way to victory, because you only think in words. And so since you only think in words, and you're using their words and you're using their narrative, you simply cannot be victorious. And so a conclusion like, well, some of them can go here, and then some non-white people, for example, could be in one section and then white people in another section. We have no power whatsoever. We are the most powerless group on planet Earth. So we're not going to decide where anybody goes. The other problem is that not only is the belief, and it's certainly not one that only Emily holds, but a lot of people hold this belief that you could break the country or countries in the West up into pieces and allocate or allot sections for different groups. That also stems from a projection of our biospirit, and a portion of it specifically, into those who victimize us. So the projection is that it would be fair if this group was here and that group was there, it would be more harmonious, make all of these arguments. But that's based in the premise that your victimizer gives a damn about fairness. Your victimizer does not give a damn about fairness. There is not going to be any equitable solution. And you can understand that quite readily if you go free and you adopt the lexicon and dialectics that we have and continue to perfect, and have shown with a great many people and successes that this does indeed work. So that is based entirely, this idea that you could allocate sections of countries to different groups of people, is based entirely in what I just said. So no, it's completely impossible. There will be no sectioning off of America or any other Western country. They will kill everyone who tried to forcibly do that, and they certainly are not going. There is no intellectual honesty or decency in the motivation of an anti-white. They absolutely are not going to say, well, it would be better for you all if you were just by yourselves over there. All right, let's see. What I'll do is I will speak to your specific questions about the show and topics that were raised on the show, and I will mix in some of the notes I have about the events of the past week, and then we'll wrap up. So make sure you tag me and get your questions to me or statements. And I'll try to catch everybody's. Stuart says, "Hail Jason, I was 11 minutes behind and the video was removed." Oh, you mean on Mark's channel? Yeah, he had to remove it immediately because of some things that Emily said, which are not her fault. She's not, practiced in the rules of YouTube, I guess I should say. And also, again, she's if she were in the story of our making, these conclusions and therefore the things she was saying that break the rules of YouTube, they wouldn't even be in her head. She wouldn't even think them to have to think, well, I shouldn't say that because I want to conceal that motivation, or I want to conceal that thought. She wouldn't be arriving at those thoughts. And so that's why it had to be taken down. And she's obviously a very bright person. I offered to her to send a free copy of Go Free, and if she has an address that she can share, and of course it's very affordable on Kindle right now. We also had a little conversation in the background about the way she identifies herself, and she was absolutely amenable to the things I was saying. So it's entirely possible that she ends up going free with the rest of us and dropping the anti-white baggage that is without even her knowing, just like so many of the rest of us, without you knowing that it's actually crippling you. Okay, so great to see you, Seaver and Roy here, and thank you, Roy. Roy actually engaged Selner, is that the guy's name? And then the guy immediately followed me on Twitter. So big round of applause to Roy and to everyone right now who is doing the one thing that can be effective across all of Western civilization, and that is spreading Go Free. Our people are more amenable to it, especially in the United States, than they have been in a long time. They are not. The question was asked over the course of the stream a couple times, is anything going to come out of this? And the answer is no. Nothing is going to come out of this. Nothing will get better. It will get a lot worse, because the majority of our brothers and sisters are still living inside of the anti-white narrative. Since they're living inside of the anti-white narrative, their conclusions are predictable. The conclusions will be more apologies, more attempts to make amends. And in fact, we'll see anti-whites and the vagues out there, our brothers and sisters, capitulating to the anti-white demands of more harmonizing the diversity. And so what does that mean in Going Free? Harmonizing the diversity means the money, the time, the people, the intelligence, etc., the opportunity cost as a consequence of all of that goes into making multiracial anti-whiteism work. So what we're going to see as a consequence of this is you're not going to see people demanding in any substantive level. I mean, yeah, you're going to see somebody who has nothing, no power whatsoever, or a handful of such people saying we should be able to secede, or we should be able to have our own neighborhoods, or we should be able to whatever. But what's really actually going to happen as a consequence of this warfare being waged by the anti-whites against Western civilization, and that's what's taking place. These are destroyers, these anti-whites. At every level, they're destroyers. There's no difference between the anti-white in the street that destroys the storefront and then pillages, than the anti-white who is sitting in the chapel, or the anti-white sitting in the halls of government, or sitting behind the chief of police desk. Wherever they are, they're the same thing. And again, I will reiterate what I said earlier. These people are not looters because you diminish their culpability in what they're actually doing. They're not rioters. Please do not call them these names. Obviously, you know not to call them a protester, but don't call them a rioter or a looter. This is about destroying Western civilization. When you look at the reason why we punish murder, for example, when you look at it at the very narrow sense, at the sort of the average IQ sense, it's because we want to rehabilitate the person who murdered, and we want to make amends with the family that lost a loved one. We want justice to be done for that family, and then potentially to rehabilitate the murderer so that he or she can go free and not murder again. But on the larger scale, the higher IQ scale, where we need to be thinking about these things if we're going to recapture our destiny, is that you punish murder because you want civilization. If you did not punish murder, then smart people would start murdering and having murders done, and you would all live under these like mafia organizations, and there would just be widespread murder. There would be no civilization. You would have to offer up your daughters. I mean, it's just so when you destroy storefronts and you take the goods out of them, you set the things on fire. If you look at it narrowly with an average IQ, the midwit IQ, you are talking about, well, some individual stealing something because he or she wants the item or something of this nature. But if you are allowed to destroy stores and set city blocks on fire and attack police, and you're allowed to do this with impunity, and I say impunity because in the anti-white narrative, the answer is, why? Because of anti-white narrative. Why? Because of Antiwhiteism. That's why it's happening. If you allow people to do that with impunity, you lose civilization. People with higher than average IQs will understand that. That's why you all are here. Let me take a look at your questions. Joel asks how I'm doing. I'm doing great. I am a little distraught by so many people, especially in the white positive sphere, that think that something will just ipso facto come out of this that is good. And it is stupefying how dumb. You know, what is the average IQ for people to be this dumb, or maybe just wishful? Nothing good will come of this unless you get going free to these people, unless you get go free to them. And I don't know how many times I have to say this. And sometimes I feel like I'm talking, to the wall, because that people just keep going back to this stupidity, and it really is stupidity because it doesn't work. Elaine Sabatino says, "Hail Jason, hail PWR Tap and After Hours." Thank you so much for that, dear lady. JC Stalling, Promethean hails to you as well. Does the anti-white insurrection currently going on mean the death of civic nationalism? If so, it is a giant white pill. It does not mean the death of civic nationalism. In fact, if anything, the white people that remain inside of the anti-white narrative will become more, or I guess more robustly, civic nationalist. They will adopt even more and stick even more profoundly to abstractionism, which is really, when we talk about civic nationalism, it's a collection of abstractions. And the reason why they have to cling to that is because they have to stay away from any concern for white well-being. So they have to push even harder. So you'll see more civic nationalism, not less. And you'll see more out of the white race of surrender, capitulation, attempts to appease, mollify, placate the anti-whites. It's like we haven't had enough of them demanding a dialogue and understanding and give more and surrender more and more of your jobs and more of this anti-white morality that informs every decision, every rule, and every institution of every kind, everywhere in your civilization that benefits non-white people to the detriment of white people. This has been the totality of our lives, of everyone's life who is listening to my voice right now. And it is going to get worse for all of the white people out there who stay within the anti-white narrative. It will improve and get better for those who are introduced to going free and who adopt the lexicon and the dialectics. This is proof of concept. We've been doing it for years now. And so my hat's off, a big salute to everyone who is taking the opportunity to make clips and to tweet about this and to gab about it and to introduce people to going free. Nothing else is going to work. Everything else has been used. There have been cities set on fire before. There have been, and this is exactly as we have predicted. This is the hot, cold, hot war of anti-whiteism, and it is cycling up. These sorts of cycles are not about to go away. They're going to happen more often, and they're going to be larger, and they're going to demand more capitulation. And white people who live within the anti-white narrative will be willing to give it. Richard Wagner, what do you think about interrupting someone on our side the next time the identity, next time they use the identity as racist? I spoke with her in the background, Richard, and she agreed with me that she should not be using that term, which good on her. And she says she's very interested in reading Go Free. So let's hope that stays in place, and we'll see some more power out of Emily Yukis when once she's in the process of going free. Laurel is here saying hello to you, dear family. And hello back to you, Laurel. Mike Anderson says, I would be happy to discuss what has happened here in Minneapolis. We have new sacred ground declared in Minneapolis. We have burned out cities. We have anti-whites going mad. Well, that'll have to be saved for this coming Sunday's going free, because I'm not going to stay here long. I do appreciate everyone that has shown up. But I do want to speak and for every one of you good people that have shown up, the 260 of you or so that have shown up, my hat's off to you. And that's why I'm doing this, because I want to empower the 260 of you out of the thousands that were just watching. But please write everything down so you don't forget anything, brother. And we'll have you call in on Sunday. Robbie says, hi, No White Guild, and everyone, a big hello to you. And let me move through here. Stuart, would reparations be worthwhile if it meant they left our countries? And brother, you're still in the anti-white narrative. They're never leaving. They're never leaving. And don't worry about where they go 10 years down the road or 50 years down the road. Just go free yourself and help those around you to go free. There's not going to be an agreement that inside of the anti-white narrative, or an agreement with anti-whites, that they would honor. So what's happening is, Stuart, is you are inside, you are a white man. You are an honorable man. And you think that if you were dealt, that if you were dealt with fairly, that you would deal fairly with that person. Well, the anti-whites are not going to behave that way. Even if you had the ability to, even if some party in whatever country that you happen to be in, brother, advanced something like this, the anti-whites might say, yeah, sure, we'll take the reparations, but to ask us to leave, we are more British than you are. We are more American than you are. We are more, so they're not going anywhere by that means. We need to be recapturing our destiny on a personal level, on a family level, on a community level. And by doing so, we will grow, and then we will have leaders that are able to think in clarity with lucidity, and therefore be able to ask the right questions and get the right answers. Mosaic says, isn't it naive to think the anti-whites will go peacefully and leave their free meal tickets behind? Yeah, they're not going anywhere. But it's not just because of the free meal tickets. Yes, that's become part of what they're doing. But the primary motivation of an anti-white is to inflict harm on Western kind and Western civilization, which you're seeing it all across the United States right now with this warfare by the anti-whites, by the destroyers, is that they're going out into the cities, they're going out into the towns, they are destroying civilization by destroying the churches, by destroying stores, by specifically targeting institutions that house historical documents, by burning down historical sites, by ripping down statues all across the country right now. They're pulling down, and I'm not talking about just like a bunch of crazed folks out in the street, and then somehow enough of them get up on a statue and are able to topple it somehow. They're going out there with the legality of the government of those areas, with trucks and workers that are ordered and paid to remove these statues. They're doing it all across the country right now. They're pulling street signs down. They're demanding every one of their demands is white erasure. Every single one of their demands is white erasure. If you're present, you are offending their objective. And the reason why is because that inflicts injury on you and Western civilization, our Western civilization. The problem is that what I'm explaining here, this is, if you see it this way, as we do in Going Free and Service to White Wellbeing, the world suddenly makes sense. You can predict the future. You can retrodict the past. But our brothers and sisters out there are not going to be seeing it this way. They're going to be wondering, how many more statues can we pull down? Or what else can we do to placate them? What else can we do? That is the kind of things that they're going to be asking themselves. So thank you for that question. PewDiePie is doing a charity stream for George Floyd and villainy signaling. Great use of the word there, our phrase that we use. What can we do to counter influencer poisoning the minds of our youth? They keep pushing the narrative. Well, it depends on who you are relative to the people that are being influenced. If they're your children or your nieces and nephews, you can get to them with the knowledge of meme pathogens, with meme curatives, and therefore inoculate them against people like PewDiePie, so that when he does something like that, they will immediately realize what's being done, that it's anti-white and that the objective is anti-white. And they'll know that PewDiePie is trapped inside of the anti-white narrative. They'll know that he's doing it, the motivations for why he's doing such a thing. So when it comes to other people's children, we have to spread this message. If you can get to someone who happens to be a parent with Going Free during the course of this, and they then extend this knowledge to their children, you will have had a great victory. So thank you for that question. JT Smith is here. Great to see you, good brother. All right, let me get to some of these points I wanted to make as well. Trump on the order on social media. He's just pushing back, as I'm sure he promised he would or implied he would, to the social media giants, that if they ever were to start censoring him, that he would respond in this way by opening up the ability to sue these people to the entirety of the population. Now, will that stay in place? Who knows? He's the kind of guy, when you're dealing with power brokers in the real world, the jungle, you have to act like this. So if you're going to make a threat, you act immediately. They censor. Immediately he moves on his promise or his threat or his implied threat or whatever it was that he's going to open it up, the lawsuits. Now, will that stay in place? Will it actually become real? We'll see whether it stays in place or becomes real, if lawsuits can move forward, or if these these social media empires, they capitulate and then Trump turns around and rescinds the order. We'll see. Just to echo, these are notes that I made, and some of the comments were made before show, and some of the comments were made during the show. I wanted to point out that just 1 week before this warfare that is being waged against Western civilization and Western kind, the anti-white regime in the media were showing you pictures of white people on beaches, white people in parks, white people on jogging trails. And when they would show you these images, they would condemn the people that you were seeing for being out when we have COVID-19 that is afflicting the world's population. So condemn in the most scurrilous way possible the white people that were being out, selfish white people. They're just out for themselves. They're just out for fun. And here we are trying, and the non-white communities are the ones that are most heavily impacted by COVID-19. So therefore, this selfishness by the white masses, this is going to cause even more injury to the non-white people of the world. We saw that just 1 week before. We see this warfare being waged against us by the anti-white destroyers. And then these people on the beaches, of course, or the jogging trails, they weren't on top of each other, and therefore violating the social distancing social contract. But certainly these people at this warfare were on top of each other. And of course, the condemnation evaporated. Somebody said, I don't know who it was, somebody said something about hypocrisy. There was no hypocrisy in this. There is no hypocrisy in this. Those of you who are going free know that there is no hypocrisy there. In the first case, you get to blame and condemn white people, which is part of the anti-white narrative. And in the second situation, you're advancing the warfare against white people, white civilization. So they haven't been hypocritical. The anti-whites haven't been hypocritical at all. It all is perfectly in line with their objectives. It makes perfect sense for those who have the eyes to see. I mentioned that we don't call them looters or rioters. We call them destroyers because we don't want to diminish or anti-white battalions, militaristic battalions, because we don't want to diminish what they're actually doing to something as minor as rioting, something as minor as theft. They are attempting to white erase. They are in the process, not attempting, they are in the process of white erasing us from our own civilization. And so we need to talk about it as clearly as we possibly can, as factually as we possibly can. And at the same time, create an awareness that we are a people and that this war is being waged against us as a people. And therefore, if you're a white person, as an individual, you are not going to be safe unless our group is safe. So you see that this is infinitely superior to refer to this as anti-white destroyers, to refer to them as anti-white battalions, to refer to this as this anti-white war being waged against Western kind and Western civilization, than it is to refer to them as looters or rioters. You want to know why these people are doing, I mentioned this during the stream, you want to know why they're doing what they're doing. In all of their videos, they're giving you the mispretext, the moralized arguments, the intellectualized arguments, and the sentimentalized arguments about why it is legitimate to inflict injury on Western kind and Western civilization. They are giving you the moralized, intellectualized, sentimentalized arguments about why it is legitimate to wage this war of white erasure against Western kind and Western civilization. Now, at the anti-white regime level, they're going to try to pad that. They're going to try to tell them exactly how to articulate those arguments a little bit more carefully. But you'll see that it is all reducible to the exact same thing in every case. Essentially, what they say every time is, why the raping? The anti-white narrative. Why the destroying? Anti-white narrative. Why the killing murdering police officers? Anti-white narrative. And in every case, you're going to have a government and the like that are going to shrug their shoulders in agreement that, yes, well, there is some legitimacy to it, even if we're going to frown upon it, because normally in Western civilization, we don't allow people to burn cities down, burn businesses down, murder police officers, and that sort of thing. Used to be something that we didn't allow. Now, I wanted to also mention, in the size of a country that we have here, United States, but you could do this with any country, but certainly the United States, at every second during a day, you can zero in from orbit to some spot on the country where someone in power is abusing or harming somebody who does not have power. In some of those cases, the population is still 60+% white for now. You're going to have a white person in power who is abusing a non-white person who does not have power. In any of those cases, then, that allows the anti-whites to pluck that instance, which is happening every second of every day, of every week, of every month, of every year. They're able to pluck that out and say, this is the justification for waging war, for white erasure. This is the justification to continue this war against Western kind. So if you get down in the trenches and you argue with these people inside of their narrative, you can never win, because they have had brilliant people figure out these kinds of arguments so that you can't win. Now, we have had brilliant people figure out the meme curatives, what to do in retaliation, how to debate these people and not debate them. We just need to have our people stop being so stupid and pick up what works. That's what we need to do. For some reason, the anti-whites have no problem doing that. But in the white positive sphere, there's a lot of problems. There's a lot of pushback. There's a lot of resistance to doing what works. So there's always going to be something. And of course, I'll say, how does anybody die in police custody, whether they are white or non-white, or whatever they happen to be, whatever their immutable characteristics happen to be? If someone has a heart condition, and surely there have been others who have been arrested and died in police custody. There have been a great many, I'm sure, who have had heart conditions, who were on amphetamines, and who were also inebriated. Why is it that they die in police custody? The reason why is because they have agency and they made a decision to engage in a behavior that caused an interaction with law enforcement. Now, it is beyond the sense and even reasoning capacity of a 6-year-old to say that police officers should somehow, human beings should somehow be able to deal on a daily basis with people trying to murder them and murdering them, with people who murder them accidentally, with the worst of humanity, and say that you need to handle the worst of humanity with such gentle gloves that they could never possibly die in your care. They could never possibly come to their end when you have control over them. And control over them, how easy is that to attain when you are dealing with somebody who is hyped up on some kind of amphetamine, who is much larger and stronger than you are? Or you just, I mean, honestly, a police officer in the United States, it would make, and this is called the Ferguson effect. You see the crime and it's happening, and if you have somebody actually being victimized, you stop the victimization, but then you just say to the criminal, just go away. You know, if you try to, you know, rape this woman anymore, then I will shoot you or something. But if not, you could stop raping her now and then just go away. Because as a police officer, a white police officer, what good is it going to do to fight with somebody who might be much bigger than you? And then the individual might die because he might be hyped up on drugs. He might be, and you have a firearm on you. Maybe he has a firearm. Maybe he has a blade and he's going to open your throat up. It is totally beyond any sense whatsoever to attempt to make a rational argument. So there is no rational argument to punish police officers or have more programs for police officers for their being in situations where they are dealing with the worst of humanity, who want them dead, who may kill them that day. They may die that'd be the last day they kiss their wife goodbye or their husband goodbye or whatever it might be. The last day they look into their children's faces. And then they're going to go out and you want them to gently subdue the hyped up on drug, much bigger than themselves individuals that are out there, stronger than themselves individuals. Give me a break. So it's totally illogical. There's no rationale to the anti-white argument. The brilliant people who thought these arguments up, who created these arguments for these miscreants in the streets, they know there's no logic to it. They know there's no rationale to it. When are we going to start having the sort of adoption, the rate of adoption of brilliant things that work for our people that we see in the anti-whites? I mean, are anti-whites smarter? Are anti-whites, are they just smarter and more? I mean, what's the deal? Why don't we see the same sort? Why do we see the same recourse? I can't tell you how disheartening it is for me to have this happening right down the road from me, setting on the church on fire across from the White House, setting bonfires in the nation's capital, and to see this happen. Police officers, good people, and you know there are good people in these. There are obviously bad people too, just like everywhere else. But you know there are good people. And they're being murdered. Their little children, their babies are not going to see and I might as well go into this here, that one of the other points I wanted to make, because we'll wrap it up. They're never going to see their father again, those little babies, but their lives don't matter. All that matters are the lives of anti-whites, whether they're white or non-white, but in particular, non-white anti-whites. Their lives have infinite value in the anti-white West. Their lives it doesn't matter how many lives they take in the course of their life, how many lives they ruin, how many people they maim. It doesn't matter how much ill they do to our civilization. Their lives still have infinite value. And if you trouble the efforts of anti-whites to inflict injury on Western kind and Western civilization, your life has no value. You are meaningless. It doesn't matter how much good you do or how innocent you are. that little boy or that little girl, children of these law officers or these civilians, these white people who were just going to the grocery store or whatever it might have been when they were lynched by these mobs of anti-white destroyers, murderers, and killed. Or the mother that was gang raped and she can never emotionally be there for her children again. Their lives have no value in this anti-white narrative. So if you're going to stay inside of it, then you're going to stay in a world where your life has no value. And therefore, do you really think you can win any argument with them? Do you think you can come up with anything shrewd enough to win or motivate or persuade anybody inside of a narrative where your life has zero value? No one is saying, and talking about that, the connection, no one is saying anything about the terror that is inflicted on all of Western kind right now. There is a deep and permanent terror that has been inflicted on every white man, woman, and child, because they know that the anti-white destroyers in the streets are going to be given free rein, and that the governments that are local police, state, and federal don't give a damn about what happens to you and your family. They're not going to stop it from happening because your life has no value. Every white person is feeling this in their bones. If you were to say something that made a single non-white child feel frightened and shed a tear down their brown cheek, if you were to say down their beautiful brown cheek, if you were to say anything that made them shed that tear and feel a little bit afraid, the anti-whites would socially lynch you. You'd be fired from your job. The media would be talking about it. If you were anybody of any import, they would be talking about how much of a monster you are for doing so. But if you do the exact same thing to every single white child in the United States, and probably most throughout the rest of the West as they look on at what's happening here in the United States, well, that's a moral thing to do. It's understandable because anti-whiteism, any of the myths pretext, any of the moralized, intellectualized, or sentimentalized arguments will be marched right out to defeat anything you say, to make it legitimate to inflict that sort of terror on every white man, woman, and child. I mentioned earlier that they started off blaming the anti-white slur. The white supremacists are the ones going out. That's going to be the anti-white narrative. And of course, we also know that they are going to be blaming white people in the form of Antifa. So it's not going to be Antifa. It's not going to be the anti-white people who are going to get punished and who are going to have to pay. It's going to be the avatar of all of Western kind. It's going to be the white lawyer, the white plumber, the white construction worker, the white neurosurgeon who pays their taxes and abides by the law. And they're the ones who are going to be the ones who have to pay for the so-called white supremacists that were actually making these beautiful protests look bad, and the white Antifa who were doing these bad things out in society while this was happening. It won't be any of them that'll be harmed. It'll be you, white man, woman, and child out there who care about your country, who care about our people and recapturing our destiny. Or it's certainly you all, but all white people are going to be suffering, except for those that they actually name. Now, what's going to happen now, I'll say, is there's going to be a massive effort to harmonize the diversity. I mentioned this in the show. That means, according to Going Free, harmonizing the diversity are the extraordinary steps that have to be taken by white people to try to make multiracial anti-whiteism work, to try to make it sort of like some sort of lubricant to make multiracialism work, because it has never worked in the history of the world. So there are going to be hundreds of millions of dollars. There are going to be new programs in every city, in every state, at the federal level, at businesses across the country and businesses outside the United States as well, that are going to be implemented even more on top of the giant superstructure that is already in place to harmonize the diversity, to punish white people, to white guilt them and the like. Hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars from white people will be shouldering this burden, will be put into brand new programs to white guilt us in every facet of our lives, wherever we go: education, work, at home because it's coming through the entertainment. Wherever we are, hundreds of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of man hours dedicated to this, and probably hundreds of thousands of people, new jobs, etc., of folks who are going to be employed, who are going to be tasked with implementing these more harmonizing the diversity, these efforts to harmonize the diversity, which of course we know what the substance of that is. I just alluded to some of those things. And we have to ask ourselves about the opportunity cost. What are we missing out on? What cures? Are we missing out on a cure for COVID-19? Are we missing out on a cure for cancer? Are we missing out on a cure for what ails your mother, father, you personally? Are we missing out on other types of inventions? Are we missing out on other types of ideas of economy or whatever, because we have our brightest and our best being employed to the tune of maybe 6, maybe even 7, certainly 6, but maybe even 7-figure jobs, so that they can figure out a way to harmonize the diversity, to guilt the hell out of the white population and give more and more to the non-white population, so that they can be placated once again. They'll stop destroying Western civilization for a little bit longer. What is the opportunity costs there for us as a people and for you personally? It's incalculable, but it's going to be taking place now. Let me see, what else do I have here? I mentioned the other day that Fox News has fully transitioned to anti-white. All of this, by the way, and you should be saying this, and I'm almost done here. I'll take a look at your questions and any financial gifts, if there are any. You should be saying this to all of your friends and family and strangers. All of this is hush crimes. There are, and of course, this is probably not true, but there are videos that the perpetrators are taking, and in some cases bystanders are taking, of these anti-white lynch mobs. Now, of course, these are probably all fake. You're going to have to ask CNN. Please go to CNN or MSNBC. They are the arbiters of truth. If they say that white is black and black is white, it means it's so. So go to CNN or MSNBC for the truth. Nonetheless, you all will be seeing on Facebook and on Instagram and all of these different places, you're going to be seeing videos, if you haven't already, animals being tortured, white people who think they're anti-white enough giving the thumbs up saying, we're with you, and then the rocks come shattering through. White people out in the streets who are anti-white being lynched by others because they see, well, you're too white. Your jaw looks a little too square. The first white people that they will find, no matter how anti-white you are, is if you have a squarer looking face, you're going to be one of the ones, no matter how anti-white you are, will be the first to be culled from their ranks. They'll allow all of these other white people that look sort of like rats, and they'll allow them for now. If you're emaciated, you're sickly, they'll allow them for now. But eventually those too will also be culled from their ranks. This is how it's always been. This is predictable, and this is what we have seen in countless microcosmic scenarios over many decades. And it's just coming to the macrocosmic fruition that we have predicted. I don't know why I end up talking. I don't know why we only have, out of the thousands that were watching, why only 275 of you, of that entire group, are smart enough, and hats off to every one of you, are smart enough to actually do something, to actually make a difference, that can actually understand what's taking place here. I mean, what's going on with the rest of those people? What is wrong with the rest of them? Why do they want to stay mired in failure? You should be saying to all of your friends and family, these are hush crimes. There are right now thousands and thousands that, I mean, I'll just tell you right now for YouTube, because I know YouTube is very interested in any sort of statement. There are many thousands of videos out there, whether they're true or not, whether they're fake or not, CNN can tell us, of white people being lynched, of anti-whites of various races saying that they did X, Y, or Z to the white folk, and to go out and get the white folk. All of those videos are probably staged by Russia, but you just nonetheless, there are many thousands out there. So go check it out for yourself to see if there's any truth to it. I am not saying there's any truth to it. Go check it out for yourself to see if there are truth to any of these videos, any of these thousands of videos that are out there now. I mentioned during, and this is the last thing, I mentioned during the show that if the best thing that Trump could do, and I'll give him advice. Apparently, he doesn't have anybody bright enough to come up with this. But if he wanted to resolve this instantly and stay within the anti-white narrative, the only course, the smartest course, is to go out to the lectern and say that he capitulates on every demand by the folks who are waging the war on Western civilization. Whatever they want, he'll give it to them. And while he's saying this, have ordered the military and overwhelming force to go and clear the streets so that people can get back to shopping and acting like everything's just fine. If he wanted, that's the best course of action for him to stay within the anti-white narrative. But otherwise, he would have to take some drastic steps, which he won't, because Donald Trump is an idiot and a loser and a liar. He's going to be better than the alternative, certainly the potential vice president who would become the president alternative, but because it will give us more time to spread going free. And as you can see, look at how we need a lot more time. We need a lot more time. And our community is made up of brightly shining gems, but there's just too few of us to make a difference. What good is it going to matter if we don't spread going free to enough people? If in 4 years from now or 8 years from now, you're sitting atop your house and the horde that's rushing the homes is coming up the hill to your house, and you say to yourself, well, I knew this is exactly how it was going to play out. I knew that won't be any good. There is no excuse is going to be good. I'll just tell you that right now. I have, as a employee at managing people, I've never accepted excuses, because as an employee and being managed, I've never given excuses. There's only going to be success or failure here. So just go ahead and push it out of your mind right now. You've burnt the boats. There's no sailing back. You have got to get going free to as many people as possible. And let me see what you all have to say so that we can wrap up here. Let me see if there are any financial gifts, so I make sure I don't miss any of those. Specifically, all right, we have Casual Cruising. Great to see you, my dear friend. Financial gift of $3. What do you think of comparing the anti-white morality to the slave morality of Nietzsche? I've so far made it work twice on vagues. I also don't think Emily is a bad person, just mentally blocked. She's not a bad person, or at least what I know of her. I mean, I don't know her in any personal way. So everything that I've seen, I conclude she's not a bad person. None of our brothers or sisters out there are bad because they're inside of the anti-white narrative. They need to be helped to go free. Now, if they refuse, I mean, we can classify them as bad, I guess, because they're going to work, their existence is going to work to the detriment of our well-being. But she's definitely not bad, especially since when we were talking in the background, she was very amenable to what I was saying to her about identifying as that anti-white concept, that anti-white slur racist. Now, if you have success, especially if it's people who read Nietzsche, they understand Nietzsche, and you can use the dialectics that we use in that framework because that framework makes sense to them and that's working. By all God means please continue. Whatever it takes to get them over. If they are sports fanatics and you can use that, whatever it is that works. So thank you very much for your service to White Wellbeing and bringing people over to going free. Because as you can see, this is going to, I mean, for God's sakes, when the plague hit, I came out, a lot of people who follow me in my work came out and they said, my God, look, Jason said, this is exactly what would happen. He said there were going to be these societal shifting moments and that they were going to be coming more readily and that they would be soon. I came on the air and I reiterated what these people were saying about me and my previous work. I reiterated what I had said. And then what did I say? Who here can remember that I said in numerous places that there are going to be riots again? They're going to be increasing frequency. And then what do we have? That was just at the beginning of the plague that I said that. And then what do we have? Who could think of the rioting then? Now, we're not calling it rioting. We're calling it the warfare being waged against Western civilization. But who would have thought about anything like this at the beginning of the plague but me? I was the one who said that these societal shifting moments are going to be happening. It's no brag, it's just fact. And now you all can go out and see the world clearly and tell the world that this is going to be happening with increasing regularity. This is where we're trending because we've looked at it on the microcosmic level, we've examined it there, and then we can extrapolate to the macrocosmic level, and it is indeed happening. We can observe through the mechanisms of human behavior and understanding what they have been programmed with, the anti-white narrative, can then accurately predict what will come next, and on a sociological scale, what will come next. How many times do we have to accurately predict? And then we are on a show and everybody's still using the old bullshit, the old Bravo Sierra. My apology. They don't want to hear about things being right. They don't want to hear about how to succeed. They want to continue with this complain fest. Just continue. David says here, thank you very much, David, financially gifting 10 pounds. I see them every day within our biospirit world. They are never leaving that biospirit bubble, no matter how much you offer them. Well, precisely. Again, only part of the reason they would stay, and this again, ladies and gentlemen, please listen closely. Please clip and share if you have to. The reason why people come to the conclusion, and don't feel bad if you came to this erroneous conclusion, it's just because you were inside of the anti-white narrative, but you're going free. The reason why people can come to the conclusion of, let's just pay them more than they get paid now. Let's pay them 5 years out or 10 years out, more than they would make or get from us in that time. The reason they come to that incorrect conclusion is because they're thinking is inside of the anti-white narrative. They believe that these people are largely motivated or primarily motivated by the payments that they are receiving, by the trinkets that they're able to buy with them, because it's not the money, it's the things they're able to get with the money, right? So the trinkets, the house, or the white woman they get, or the car, or the quota job. That's not the reason they're here. That's not the reason they won't leave. They won't leave because if you understand the service to white well-being, it's because their motivation is to harm you. It is to harm our civilization. The perquisite of doing that is the payments, is the car, is the job, is the white wife, and all the other white women that'll get on their backs to try to ameliorate and placate these people because they also believe the anti-white narrative. Please, I can say this until I'm blue in the face. Why is it that the anti-whites can find somebody and say, boy, this person is really right. This person has really figured it out. And then they march out into the world and they make that their reality. But in the white positive sphere, we can put two and two together, retrodict and predict, and be right every goddamn time. And only 250 out of several thousand are smart enough to get it. Laura, let's get a round of applause for Laura over here on Cash App. This is our very own Laura, been here for a long time, working with Way of the World on the Nat Connect project, which is a very commendable thing that they have done. And I big hats off to Laura, financially gifting $50. I love you, dear lady. Thank you so very much for that. You're a wonderful person. Thank you for everything you're doing for our people, and means a lot to me. Let's see. I'm going to scroll back. If you had a question that you tagged me with, and I didn't get to it while I was talking, please write it again in the chat and tag me. I will get to them quickly. I'll run through these quickly, and then hopefully get as many answers to you all. Get as many answers to you all as I can, and empower you all, because I love you all as well, and I want you all to be empowered. I want you all to understand the world as clearly as I can explain it to you. That if I had children, if I had, gosh, I could just go on and on. The bottom line is that I want all of you to be like the actual brothers or sisters or children that I could have, empowered with everything I can give you. And if all I can do is help to make your life better, then I will feel blessed from having made your life better. So let's get to as many of these as we possibly can. One Drop says, villainy signaling. Why not vice signaling? Well, I guess it depends. They're villains by signaling anything that's anti-white. That's why, and that'd be one of the main reasons. Shauna Shaw says, exactly right, Jason, to something I said. Thank you very much for that, dear lady. Another wonderful woman in the white positive sphere in service to white well-being. Bartleby says, exactly, Jason. It's burn down and destroy, consolidate power through election, then implement far. You use here left ideology. It's anti-white ideology. Because, for example, the spectrum of left-right exists inside of the anti-white narrative. It's not a real spectrum. A lot of white people, almost all of us, to a man, woman, and child, we love the environment. We want to protect the environment. We love animals. We want to protect animals. Even when there are white people who hunt animals, and it's just for sport, it's not even for eating them. They don't want to see animals abused. I've never met anybody who did that, white person who would be happy, and would have to be a crazy person. These two opinions exist on this false spectrum of left-right on the extreme left-hand side. So it's really an anti-white ideology that they want to implement. But thank you very much for writing that, Bartleby. Let's see, I'm scrolling through here. Remember, tag me as no white guilt. If you tag me as discipline with no white NWG, I'll take a look at the other screen and see if there's anything there. But otherwise, it's going to be hard for me to identify. I think somebody mentioned something about Tucker on Fox. He'll be there for a little bit longer, I think. But his speech is going to be increasingly curtailed because Fox has made the shift to being as anti-white as everybody else. Captain Penguin, I've tagged you on Twitter on an image of a so-called parent white guilting her young daughter. The most evil child abuse. God, how despicable. Thank you for that. I'll take a look when I get a chance. How absolutely disgusting. There's no helping this parent or this child inside of the anti-white narrative with their vernacular, understanding the world as they want you to understand the world. So very, very well put, Captain Penguin, and I'll look for that. Let's see. JT Smith said lulls to something I said. I don't know what it was. But I also want to say thank you to everyone who messaged me offering help if I were to become threatened in some way by these destroyers who were, of course, raiding homes to try to find sanctuary from law enforcement in the district. So I thank you all for those offers of help. But I assure you that I was more than ready to make their lives very uncomfortable if they were to home invade me by making them take off their shoes and wear pairs of my old slippers in the house. They would really not enjoy that. West writes, I've got to head to work now, but thank you for the wisdom and stay safe. Thank you, brother. And thank you for being here. Look for you in the future. Volkish says, we need to tell white anti-whites that your skin is your uniform. Well, maybe, I don't know, maybe your skin is your coffin, because you're not going to survive no matter how anti-white you are if you're white. But the problem is that that's not going to be enough. You have to introduce them to going free. Because if you say, and this is the kind of thing that's been said in the white positive for a long time, your skin is your uniform. The average white person, since they don't have a people, you need to remember that. That's what going free gives them back. It gives them a people. The average white person is going to say, as a hyper individualistic person, they're going to say, how can I escape that outcome? And of course, then asking that question inside their head will result in answers that are deleterious for our people. Indeed, deleterious for them individually as well, but deleterious for our people. Hyperborean Age writes, the head of the Minneapolis Police Union said they asked for more cops in the National Guard, but were denied. Of course they were. The anti-whites are in charge in Minneapolis, and they're not going to be coming to the help of the white men who are in the police force, etc., on the front lines. They are going to let them suffer. And they are going, why? Because they want to inflict harm on those white men. Do you see how this makes sense when you finally understand it? Black Flag writes, we will NWG for sure. I don't know exactly. Maybe that was me saying to spread it to going through to as many people as possible. Anglo-Saxon says, you're a lion in the white positive world. Hail, Jason. Thank you very much for that, Anglo-Saxon. I deeply appreciate, especially when we have so few that apparently that are bright enough and honorable enough and have enough integrity and have enough, I guess, a self-activation to get started and to begin making a difference in the world rather than just get together for another complain fest. Talk about how bad it is. Use speech where we own the anti-white narrative's interpretation of our people. Piss on that. And don't you ever either, and this is the other thing, the conservative, I've talked about this before. Don't ever say we, like for your government. Don't say we are doing X, Y, Z, and we need to really stop doing that. Because you have it's not you, it's not our people. If you do that to yourself, you are brainwashing yourself. Why do we keep giving in to these people? You are not giving in to any of them. You are just harming yourself when you say such things. Mr. American says, yes, NWG. I hope that was, thank you very much for that endorsement and agreement. Hyperborean Age, new waves of white flight moving out of the urban jungles. Indeed. They're going to be thinking about themselves. Everybody on the show on PWR that was saying this is a good thing, they were all wrong. So I apologize if that's upsetting, but you're all wrong if you think that this is going to result in something good. The only good that will be done is the spreading of going free to our brothers and sisters, those that get reached. That is actual work that's good, that's going to get done. White flight, not only moving away from these places, but white flight in the sense of, the white man or white woman that decides to date and have sex with and maybe reproduce with a non-white person to make amends for all of the evil of our people. That's white flight. White flighting into drugs, white flighting into suicide. All of that's going to be happening as a consequence of this. And these people who are now, many white people who are now going to need therapists for the fear now that is embedded in them in the very marrow of their bones. How many white women do we have out there that saw these images and are permanently they are permanently branded with this fear, because they know the governments of the West are not going to protect them from this sort of destroying anti-white mayhem. All right, let's get to Mantis says, Jason and Latte made a great video this week on the topic of I can't breathe. Well, I ask you, thank you for making the suggestion. I have to ask you, Mantis, and anybody who makes a suggestion from now on, are you recommending somebody who's going free? Are you recommending somebody that's using our lexicon and dialectics? Because if you're recommending someone who's still speaking within the anti-white narrative, who's still using their arguments, their dialectics, then you are poisoning people further. If a content creator is not using the lexicon and dialectics of going free, and people are dying, I'm not gonna mince words here. I'm not gonna. Those who are still in the anti-white narrative and using their verbiage and arguments, using their concepts, they are going to continue the trend of where this has been going. It doesn't matter how many stats they show. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many it doesn't matter if they break out the whole FBI arrest record book. It doesn't matter if they show you all of the IQ tests from every university. It doesn't matter if they show you what every philosopher ever said. It doesn't matter if they show you the great hypocrisy. It's going to continue. And it's going to be your mom, and it's going to be your wife, and it's going to be your father, and it's going to be your son, and it's going to be all of these people. It's going to be you that are going to be the next ones lynched by these anti-white mobs, that are going to be the next one who is fired, because for every diversity hire, there needs to be a diversity fire. It's going to be you who doesn't get into the university of your choice, or any university at all, because they're going to be taking non-white people and morally speaking within the anti-white narrative, and legally in some cases, it is the moral thing to do to deny you entrance into the university. You then will be white flighting into drug abuse because you were smart enough to do the advanced job or get the training in whatever trade you wanted to have the training in, and you won't be getting it. Someone else will be getting it on the basis of their race. So if you are stuck in this absolute quagmire of dog shit, this is the absolute quagmire of death. You are not, people are dying, and I'm not going to sugarcoat these other approaches that have been failing for a century and more now. I'm not going to sugarcoat this garbage, because this is where we're going. I'm going to go down because all of these idiots, they can't get it through their heads that, boy, this works, so let's stick with this. So Mantis, I don't know, probably this guy that you're talking about, he probably is going free, or maybe you never thought about it before, that maybe you shouldn't recommend somebody who isn't going free, who's just going to show here's the evidence that he was actually on this drug or that drug, and look at the autopsy reports. And then he's going to continue, not going to introduce people to going free. He's just going to continue talking with inside of the anti-white narrative. If that's what he's doing, you didn't realize it, then it's just going to harm people who watch it. It's not going to do you any good. You're not going to get into a conversation. You're not going to get into a conversation with a vague or with an anti-white in front of anybody and say that, well, don't you know this guy was actually, died because of XYZ, because the person that you're talking with, it will be moral for them to knock all your teeth out. It won't matter. Please stop with but that's the facts. I don't care. Reality doesn't care. None of that matters. All that matters is what is in the heads of people and what motivates these human units that are out, and they're going to attack you, and they're going to respond in a certain way, and it's all predictable. So the thing to do is, if you know this guy, this content creator, and he made a great video and he's not going free, you need to get to him messaging every time he makes a video So maybe he gets massive audiences. Get to him and make sure he starts going free. Make sure he starts using our lexicon and our dialectics so that he can help all the people that will watch him because he's entertaining or whatever it is. He's making content that is at their speed or whatever it is. That's what we need to do, because this world is burning down around us. It's happening now. It's going to get worse, and it's going to get worse more regularly and with an increasing pace. So it's time to stop sugarcoating this stuff. But I thank you for the recommendation. I'll check it out, and we'll see what this person has to say. If there were 200 of me, I would be messaging all of these people. Sorry, I can't do every single thing myself. Me and all of the great people who have been active here and in this community. We can't do it all alone. So other people are going to have to step up and take some initiative on their own. Be a self-starter. Steve Bin Bob, financially gifting $3, says, Jason, I share your frustration on PWR tonight. I've not yet read Going Free, but will be placing my order. Well, a big salute to you, my brother. Thank you so much for making the decision to go right by going free, to go healthy by going free, to recapture our destiny by going free. This is the only way to do it. It's the only thing that has shown success again and again. Everything else has a significant track record of failure. That's what we know. So thank you so much. And thank you so much for the testimony of writing that and saying that here with $3. 156 viewer, financially gifting £5. Thank you very much. Thanks for going free. Started finding MPs I never thought I had. God bless you for that testimony. I thank you very much for the financial gift, but 100 times greater, I thank you for that testimony. Didn't know. If you're listening to this live or in replay, you have no idea what an MP meme pathogen is. You need to start going free too, and you will begin accessing the true powers that are within you, and we can begin on the road to recovery. Ohesian Outlaw, financially gifting $5. Thank you very much, dear friend. I am excited to get your book in the mail tomorrow. I appreciate that, brother. Which one? Which one did you get? Did you get the brand new Prometheus Rising? You can if you want to respond to that, you can tag me or write in the question widget. Thank you very much for the financial gift and for acquiring the book, whichever one it was. Over here in the question widget, we have Mr. Wagner saying, please interrupt anyone in our broader sphere from identifying as a racist. The anti-white slur. 80% of vagues, at least, are lost. Yes. And maybe when I suspect that Emily will be back, and maybe when she comes back, we will hear her say something about not using the word, the anti-white slur concept racist, because of everything that concept then defines her as. Even though she means it as one thing, it ends up defining her as a great many different things. And also because it legitimizes that concept, which legitimizes the anti-white narrative. Joe Cool says, thoughts on how Emily Yuka's rhetoric about, quote, white revolution and then a word that I won't even say because the AI is obviously listening, Africa, does anything but make us look like hateful savages. Her appearance on PWR, Joe says, was awful, in his opinion. She shouldn't be a speaker at PA either, is Joe's opinion. Well, thank you very much for sharing. I don't know anything about it. I've never heard these comments about those things you just wrote there. I hope she didn't say those things. And if she did in the past, then certainly she can go right from this point forward. She can acquire Go Free, and she can get back in touch with that moment in her heart when she decided that she was going to sacrifice herself for the well-being of our people, because that was a moment of purest love for our people and for every one of us. It's only after that moment that we then look out and say, well, what does it look like to do this? And then adopt the anti-white narrative and look like monsters as a consequence. So thank you for bringing that up, though, Joe. Yeah, I hope if she ever did say something like that, that she never says it again. And if she does continue talking that way, then it's certainly, or anyone does, if anyone is talking that way and becoming the personification of the ne'er-do-well in the anti-white narrative, it would be very bad for patriotic alternative, without question, for that person to be a face associated with the party. Roy Danton, the great Roy Danton. What I disliked most in PWR was the talk about separation. I'm afraid that'll trigger an association with evil things in the average vague. It absolutely will. You're absolutely right. When you talk about, when anybody in the white positive sphere talks about separating, first of all, it's so premature. I mean, you're not going to be able to get a pill that's going to stop this prematurity. You have no power. These people have no power. We have no power. So talking about topics over which you exercise not only no power, but it's so comical how little power we have. First and foremost is ridiculous. It is a sign of sociopolitical immaturity, and maybe also just general immaturity as far as maturing to an adult and surrendering mechanisms of speech and etc. that are colloquialisms that are just deleterious and thoughts that are deleterious. But the other thing is, as Roy is astutely noting here, is that in the anti-white narrative, somebody who cares about white people wants, among other things, a separation. And the separation, as per that ideology, the anti-white narrative, is defined as masses of non-white people being harmed, masses of non-white people being displaced. And this is what our brothers and sisters hear. And so when they hear something like separation, they immediately see a bunch of innocent non-white people being harmed. We in service to white well-being are not going to harm anyone. We will defend ourselves. We're not going to harm anyone. It is dumb. It is premature. It is silly. It is fatuous. I could just go on and on. It is infantile. It is sophomoric. On and on and on. It is puerile. How many more synonyms do you want me to give? To even broach something like this that would result in the harming of innocent people, we have no idea what the world is going to look like in another week, much less per our power relative to this power structure, because we haven't reached a level of liquidity, connectivity, numbers, etc., going free, that we can take advantage of opportunities that social shifts present to us. This is another societal shift. We just had a plague that created a societal shift. We just had, now we have warfare against Western kind and Western civilization, another societal shift, and we are in no position to take advantage of the opportunities that are there for us that are real. And we are in no position to overcome the hurdles that are now presented to us. So what will a future, 10 years, 5 years, 100 years, and possibilities of separation? Who knows? Who cares? You might as well think more about, well, what will we do if an asteroid hits the planet? You might as well just bother yourself with that question. So yes, stay away from any sort of simple discussion, and I mean simple in its most basic ways here, that could only potentially lead our vagues out there to think something very different about you than you actually feel in your heart. Warrior says, we're blessed to have you, brother Jason. Thank you for that. I totally understand how you feel. You've been screaming as loud as you can on your own for too long, but your message has reached and changed some of us. Well, thank God for that. Thank God for that. I'm completely blessed that for every single one of you, that Going Free has made a difference in your lives, and that we continue to spread this message. You all are my heroes, because you had the integrity and the courage and the intelligence to step forward and adopt Going Free, and then share your testimony. How many people do we need to have share these wonderful testimonies? And if you want something to do, you don't want to be, this question was asked, I'm going to be signing off here in just a moment. The question was asked about, as I'm reading here, that the warfare in the UK is The warfare in the UK is heating up in the streets right now. The one thing you can do is not complain about this. Is not, despite I know Emily suggested just keep putting data in front of people's faces. That's not going to do it. The one thing you can do is you can begin going free. You can begin down this path of healing, of self-redemption, of coming back in touch with who you are, back in touch. I mean, the only time you really had access to it was when you were newly born. And then ever since, you've been infected with mean pathogens in your brain that have been stopping you from reaching your potential. You need to start going free so that you can think in the right words and think with the right arguments. Once you can do that, you can then begin taking this to friends and family. You can go free with friends and family. That will speed up the rate at which you go free. As this spreads across our lands, it will spread to the whites who are still in the halls of power, our fellow Westmen, brothers and sisters, who are still in the halls of power, still police chiefs, still admirals, still generals, still the cop working the beat, still the fireman. All of our brothers and sisters that are out there, this will reach them, and then they too will be able to see the world for what it is. Once that happens, then all of the whole panoply of things become available to us. Until that happens, nothing is available to us, period. And if anyone out there wants to say otherwise, they're simply wrong. They're spitting into the wind. Zero Talent is here. Busy, just stopped in to quickly give my appreciation to our community. Much appreciation to you, great brother. The previous gift where the person said they can't believe how many MPs they were finding within themselves. So true for all of us. Let's go free. Amen. Zero Talent is a great participant in this community, and that's what we are, participants. And thank you so much for underscoring that reality of all of these MPs. You see, it's an MP to think, for example, ladies and gentlemen, when Emily said, and I lightly was helping her go free of it, when Emily said that this is a failed, what does she call it, a racial experiment in the United States? This whole idea that there's a racial experiment is a meme pathogen. There's no experiment taking place. It is a meme pathogen that was used more so in a couple decades past, and to convince white people, on one hand, that there was this grand, noble, and heroic thing that just had never been done in humanity before, this great racial experiment. And for other white people, it was for something for them to complain about, that America is not supposed to be a racial experiment, confusing white America about what was really taking place. There's never been a racial experiment here. There has only been anti-whiteism, which victimizes Western kind and Western civilization for the benefit of everyone else. At no point was racial experiment anything more than a meme pathogen. And so that is a thought that she was infected with, that something like that was actually taking place. And because she's infected with that thought, it controlled the thoughts that grew out of it. Do you see how it works? Once Emily, and she's more than bright enough to get it, to go free, and maybe even quickly, once she realizes that statements like racial experimentation and the like are just meme pathogens, they're just infections that were sown in her to ensure her and our people's destruction, she will be able to think clearly, and she will come to much more elucidating and insightful conclusions. And I will say, just in case, a bald guy creation saying, just ordered go free. Cheers to you, brother. This is Beauregard. Will you sell your book in Europe too? I want to order it in Germany, and it takes a really long time to get. If you order it from, if you acquire from NoWhiteGuiltCollectibles.com, I will ship to anywhere, but it should be available on Amazon in Germany as well. And I'm just going to make a quick, I'm going to slide through here and then bid you all adieu so I can get to some other activities for White Wellbeing. Lack of a better name says, I'm so glad to have found this place, Jason. You seem like a really based guy who genuinely cares. Thank you for doing what you are doing. Well, thank you very much. You obviously have great powers of deduction, because that is exactly what I am. And that is exactly what this is. So thank you so much, lack of a better name, for being here with us. Please go free, my friend. Clipper says, do you mean separating as in balkanization? Balkanization implies to the average mind warfare or hostilities. And you absolutely should not refer to balkanization or separating, because this is, for the average person, they're going to see in the anti-white narrative a white person who wants to grievously harm innocent non-white people. And nothing could be further from the truth for us who care about our people. We absolutely don't want to harm any innocent non-white person. Balkanization is what we would like to prevent from happening, because what's happening then is balkanization occurs typically after and in the midst of a cultural Cold War, which is the projection of biospirits, a bunch of people living amongst each other with different biospirits. They all have numerical courage and are able to try to vie for what culture will dominate, what biospirit will dominate in a particular land mass, and that ends in a sanguinary way that we want to prevent from happening. Okay, let me see if there's anything else. Don't worry about 5 years down the road, 50 years down the road, 25 years down the road. Worry about right now. Get active right now to spread something that is a curative contagion. It will spread once you help it to spread. Get out there right now and spread something that will cure people of their white noir, that will cure them of their white guilt, that will enable them to pass that on to others. I love you all. Thank you so much for being here, going free. Just 200 or so of us out of the several thousand that were just watching. So count yourselves among the absolute very best. I love you all. Let's go free.